Hello, fellow mind travelers, and welcome to this episode of Mind Traveling. I am Jerid.
And I am the Hyphenate.
And the Hyphenate, where are you going to take us today, man? Where are we traveling to?
So today I want to talk about a conspiracy theory that I came across a few years ago that relates directly to the hip-hop rap music industry.
Tupac is still alive.
Not that one. Maybe for another video.
Okay.
Although I did see some dude one time in Hollywood that looked just like him. I thought it was him, but...
I saw Superman down there, too.
There's another video. Is Superman real?
I think he is.
So this conspiracy theory is known as the secret meeting that changed rap music and destroyed a generation.
Mumble rap?
That's probably that's good. So in April 2012, a news publication received a letter by an anonymous man. Doesn't say his name whatsoever.
How do we know he's a man?
Anonymous human being, maybe. By
He's like, hello, I am a man. That's all I will tell you about myself.
So in 2012, a news publication received an anonymous letter from a person. This letter starts off by saying that the story that's about to be told is complete truth. He leaves out his name or her name and the names of the other people that were involved for his safety or her safety and the safety of the others that were there part of the secret meeting. So it's important to note that the people who were in that meeting also signed non-disclosure agreements, meaning that legally they could not say a word to anybody.
So what is the super secretive meeting about?
So before I get to what the meeting was about, he first explains that he came to America, he became a very important and powerful executive in the music industry from the 80s to the 90s. And
Does he give like a record label?
yeah, he says that he was a decision maker. So he was like the top of the top of the top of the music industry that pretty much made everything move. So keep in mind, him and his colleagues controlled the entire music industry, not just rap. It was all genres of music.
Gotcha.
He goes on to also say that at the time in 1991, him and his colleagues actually weren't very fond of rap music.
Which would make sense if they weren't fans of it, because in 1991 it wasn't the biggest genre of music, right?
Right. It was booming, but not yet at what it is now.
It was on the rise, but it wasn't necessarily the mainstream music everyone was listening to, right?
Definitely.
Gotcha.
Now, this meeting talks about how it got it to the mainstream. So he goes into now tell details about this secret meeting, that he goes to a secret location on the outskirts of L.A., him and other colleagues of his. They go into this super baller house, and there's a person that comes in to the meeting that they don't know. They're not familiar with him. He introduces himself on a first name basis, doesn't give his last name, and doesn't explain anything about his background. So the guy who wrote the letter and all his colleagues have no idea who this guy is. They assume maybe he's a homeowner or something, but he looks like someone of high power. That guy welcomes everybody, thanks them for all their success in the music industry, and then goes on to explain that these music executives, the companies that they work for, the giant record labels, actually invested money into privately owned prisons.
That's an interesting fact to add in the mix.
So here's the thing with privately owned prisons. Privately owned prisons are actually government funded. So the more inmates that they have, the more funding, the more money they get from the government. So then the guy who's hosting the meeting continues on, and he says that what he wants to do, and he wants all of the record label executives, including the guy who wrote the letter, what he wants them to do is to help push rap gangster rap music to the masses. He wants that to be the primary genre style in that hip hop world side of music.
So really just push and elevate gangster hip hop music as like the main
let that be
urban
the mainstream
soundtrack, right?
Let that be the mainstream music.
Okay.
And the reason for that is they own prisons. If they can push out this narrative of gangster rap and have these people that are of influence inspire generations to come and the kids and everybody else to want to behave in those criminal ways of gangster rap, selling drugs, doing violent crimes, all that stuff. If they can push that narrative, then essentially over time, it's going to create a whole set of new criminals that they can imprison.
So they're trying to manipulate the culture
completely.
Gotcha.
To get the prisons more full so they can get more money from the government, because the money from prisons is like massive. Like people who own prisons are extremely wealthy. Before we go into like the end of the letter, he's essentially explaining how the music industry changed. Because if you look at before 1991, gangster rap was barely starting to come around that time, but what was still the mainstream in hip hop was more socially conscious music, more fun party music. There wasn't a lot of violent music being made in the rap world that was on the airwaves very much. It was very limited. But then if you actually looked at the time frame, what happened in 1991 and NWA and all these other things, like that really did become the mainstream. Right.
So in 1991, obviously we could look back and NWA, the rise of, fuck the police and all this stuff came out. So as far as the other end goes with the prison populations, did they skyrocket like in 1991? Is that like a provable fact?
Yeah, if you look at the years 1992, 93, 94, 95, the rate that people were being in prison exponentially grew.
And it's fucked up because when you look at about like the layers in this, obviously they picked gangster hip hop because of the demographic, right? I mean, throughout American history, there's injustices and things like that.
Right.
But it's not like they picked rock and roll, which you would say most of just, white kids are listening to or older white people. So it's really fucked up to know that they tried specifically to like corner a demographic of people.
To target minorities,
right?
yeah.
So
blacks, Hispanics, etc.
It's fucked up.
Yeah, definitely. So in the letter towards the end, this guy actually says that he didn't end up going through with the offer. He ended up leaving and never went back to talk to those people. And within 3 to 6 months, he started noticing the drastic change on the airwaves. So if you guys go back and see, the types of music that were number one in the top Billboard charts, you'll see it was mostly gangster rap that started taking over the airwaves throughout the next few years. This guy ends up saying, he couldn't talk to anybody about it, so he never said a word, but he wasn't involved with that actual execution of making this happen, but he always felt guilty because he knew that there was an actual agenda to create more inmates and it be these minorities, blacks, Hispanics, etc., and the more ghetto areas. Let me just read you the last part that he wrote in his letter. He wrote, "I see how the criminalization of rap music played a big part in promoting racial stereotypes and misguided so many impressionable young minds into adopting these glorified criminal behaviors, which often led to incarceration." It's crazy, man, to think that, this is an anonymous letter, so there's no factual proof that this happened, but if you break down, what has happened throughout the past, 20-something years, it's definitely something that's extremely possible.
It correlates. To me, it seems highly plausible that it's true. Reason being, you have to look at the media for what it is. The media is a tool, right? The media is the biggest tool that this country has on influencing the people.
Right.
And if even in recent times, you see that conflict is the biggest generator of a buzz. Definitely. Everybody's looking for a conflict. Someone confronts somebody or somebody
Drama
punches
brings
somebody.
Views and sales.
We only have the president we have because conflict built media stories that he was able to build a platform upon.
Definitely.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like when you look back, the biggest way to make something huge is to make a conflict within it. So make this genre go completely against society.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And be super gangster and vocal about it and fuck the police.
Very drama filled.
Do you know what I mean? So looking back, it makes a lot of sense. And most of the time, it's high up execs that are kind of plotting out all these things.
Yeah.
And it ain't that hard to figure it out. Like, hey, let's make all these people talk about shit that'll put people in the jails that we own, and then we can make money off of CD sales, because this is before people were downloading music, right? A lot more money was being generated through music.
They can make money off the artist and make money off the inmates.
And they're double dipping. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's pretty interesting to think about. I mean,
yeah,
very plausible.
I came across this in 2012, and then now that this channel came across, I'm like, man, this is a great conversation to have with you guys. And I hadn't read this letter. If you guys look it up, you guys can search for it. Just put "the secret meeting that changed rap music and destroyed a generation." Search that, and you guys will find this exact letter. And just revisiting the letter again as we got ready for this episode, it just blew my mind again. Just thinking, like, damn, this is crazy.
It makes you think. So obviously in the 90s, the big thing was to push gangster rap. Right? And that was very successful. But gangster rap died out, I would say, in, I don't know, maybe the mid-2000s, something like that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the hustler music started becoming more prominent. and just all about money. Really, it seemed like to be flashy in hip hop.
Right.
And now the trend, back then it was like I sell drugs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I hustle, I do what I got to do. But now the trend is I do drugs.
And a lot of today's I do drugs is like drugs you can get from prescription, things that you could actually buy legally.
Yeah, a lot of it is Xanax.
Exactly.
Which is the highest counterfeited pill out there. They use fentanyl to make fake Xanax, and that's like Little Peep overdosed on it.
Right.
Most people that have overdosed on Xanax was because it was fentanyl, which is like 10 times more lethal. So it's crazy how all of these pieces could be manipulated, right?
Right.
Like we can push a genre of music. Like right now, unless you have a face tattoo, you can't be famous. You have to have a face tattoo, have some sort of drug content, or at least have an agenda being pushed to your audience that's non-productive.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? No one's out there saying, do all you can, be the best you could be. I mean, the last person I remember really being like that was a dude that got killed, right?
Yeah, man. It just makes you think like how much the music manipulates people in general, not just in the 90s, but like to this day and everything else within our habits and our likes and all that kind of stuff. So it's crazy. It blew my mind. Did it blow your mind?
It blew my mind, man. It's just another example of art imitating life, imitating art, and they're using the art to make us imitate it to ruin our lives. It's crazy.
It's real talk, man. So I want to know what you guys think. Do you guys think this is factual? Leave a comment below. Let us know what you think about this. If you guys come across any other research yourself, or how far you think it'll go.
It's a scary thought.
Definitely, man, definitely.
And as always, you can find me on Instagram at Let's Mind Travel. Where do we find you?
My Instagram is The Hyphenate. My YouTube channel is The Hyphenate. And thank you guys for watching.
And until next time, safe travels.